Let's pray. Father, as we consider how your word impacts on our lives, help us to take your message and apply it to ourselves. Amen. Well, welcome back to our series on everyday faith. And you may remember that this series has a title, The Game of Life. Last time we were thinking about setting up the game. Today we're moving on to thinking about how to play the game. How to play the game. And we're starting off, well, we need to play by the rules. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the film Grease. In fact, it was actually on TV the other day. It was one of the first films I ever saw in the cinema, which possibly dates me a bit. But I always thought John Travolta was an amazing dancer. In fact, I even went to dancing lessons for 2 weeks as a child so I could learn how to dance like him. I know you can see where I get it from, can't you? It's obvious. Anyway, I always remember one particular scene from the film, and that picture on the left there is from near that scene. And there's this about to be this car race between two rival gangs. John Travolta is the leader of one of the gangs and driving one of the cars. And the car driver from the other rival gang says, "The rules are, there ain't no rules." I thought, when I first saw that, how cool is that? How cool is that? But of course, it's a load of rubbish. It just isn't true. It just isn't true. In real life, in every game or race or competition, there are some basic rules. You know, in golf, you have the rule, play it where the ball lies. In boxing, no hitting below the belt. When it comes to cards, no dealing from the bottom of the pack. In Monopoly, every time you pass go, collect 200. In football, we got the offside rule. And I won't ask you to explain it because we have VAR to help us now. Yeah, well, never mind. And so on. Anyway, some people get so involved in the games that they're playing, they are looking for the slightest chance to complain about a rule infringement. You know, you can pretty much guarantee that if someone looks at a Liverpool football player in a nasty sort of way on the pitch, their manager, Jurgen Klopp, is going to talk about it in the press conference afterwards. And then, of course, you always get people who look, though, the way to get round the rules. Just think of the issues to do with an unnamed former Prime Minister and his advisors and the rule breaking that went on during lockdown. Some of the things done were within the rules, apparently, but it was clear to everyone that it didn't make what was going on the right way to behave. You know, in the rule in boxing, no punching below the belt. Have you seen how high some of them have their belts? I mean, they're like nearly as high as my dog collar, it seems. Then, of course, sometimes people take drugs in sport. So other people don't count properly when they play golf. My grandfather. Other people try and sneak and look at their opponent's cards when they're playing a card game. Don't know if you saw I'm a Celebrity last week and a bit of rule breaking in that going on. People try to get round the rules. And of course, when we break the rules, we don't do it in full view. We try to hide our dishonesty. Over the last 6 months, there's been quite a lot of programmes about a former Walsall MP, John Stonehouse. And when we try to hide our dishonesty, that indicates a lack of integrity. You know, when you watch a football match and you see the ref giving a penalty, and the person he's penalised will immediately jump up, along with another 5 or 6 players probably, and immediately protest his innocence. It was never a foul. And it's only when you watch the TV replay that you realise it was clearly a foul. He wasn't interested in going for the ball. He was trying to kick the player off the pitch. And yet he still protested his innocence, even when the penalty was originally given and everybody knew it was a penalty. And that sometimes happens in our lives. Sometimes. Often we are so bothered about protesting our innocence that we don't even notice our lack of integrity. You know, we all agree that following rules is a pretty good idea, and we want to follow them. But we're also perhaps prepared to break them if we think we can get away with it. think about driving. I bet I'm not the only one who always drives within the speed limit, unless I'm in a rush to get somewhere. Or how often do we see people sneaking through the traffic light when it's gone orange or perhaps even a darker colour? They know they've got time to get through. Or how often do you see people on their phone talking while they're driving? Or how about when you've got guests come round for a meal, or a cup of tea and a cake, and you spot the nicest cake, so you hold the plate with the nicest cake closest to you, so they have to take one of the not such nice cakes. I'm sure you never do anything like that. We don't even realise sometimes that we are lacking integrity. But integrity is a really interesting concept when we think about it. Integrity is not the same as knowing the rules. It's about being honest and consistent and following them even when nobody is watching. I'm reminded of a story of a man driving along, and he's being tailgated by a woman, a really stressed out woman in a car. On a busy road, suddenly a traffic light goes amber in front of him, so he stops and he does the right thing and he doesn't go through the intersection, even though he could probably have beaten the red light by accelerating. Well, the woman who's tailgating him goes absolutely mad. She honks the horn, she gesticulates dramatically, she screams in frustration that she's missed this chance to get through the intersection on red. She's making rude hand gestures at him, and suddenly she hears a tap on the window, and she looks up into the face of a very serious-looking police officer. The police officer arrests her and takes her to the police station, where she's put in a cell after being fingerprinted and photographed. Well, after a couple of hours, the policeman approaches the cell and opens the door, and she's escorted to the booking desk. And he says, I'm really sorry, madam, for the mistake. You see, I thought you'd stolen the car. When I pulled up behind you, while you were blowing the horn and making rude gestures at the guy in front of you, I noticed something. On the back of your car, you had a bumper sticker that said, "What would Jesus do?" And you had one of those fish emblems on your plate, a Christian fish emblem. Naturally, I assumed you'd stolen the car. I wonder. Integrity. Integrity is not the same as knowing the rules. It's about not the same as reputation. Some people have a great reputation, but when it comes crashing down, it's clear they were totally lacking in integrity, and we see that regularly in our news. Integrity is not thinking the same as thinking we are okay, forget everyone else, I'm just above average. That's not integrity. Integrity is about consistency, being consistent in our actions and our values and the way we do things. And most importantly, integrity is about being consistent in our principles and our morals. And if we're going to play the game to the best of our ability, we need to play with integrity. But the good news, of course, is this. When, not if, when we break the rules, there is always a way back to God through repentance and through His grace. The second thing about how to play is we need to fill each square with what matters most. You know, many games take place on a board which is made up of squares. So another thing we need to think about is how we play the game, is how we fill those squares with what matters most. And by that, I mean the squares in the board of your life. You might know the board of your life by a different name. You might call it a diary or a calendar. Here's a visual illustration to explain the kind of things I mean. This is the square of your life, if it were. And we fill our squares with lots of different things. We fill our lives with lots of different things. Watching TV. Actually, I'll watch a bit more than that. Perhaps telling people where we spent all day talking. Going on Facebook and social media. Cleaning the house. social media again. And a bit more social media. You get the idea. Other things on the squares that we need to put in the squares are really important things in our life. So important that we write on them, perhaps, so we don't forget them. Perhaps yellow. Yellow could stand for those people who bring sunshine to our lives. Perhaps green. Well, we haven't got green. Let's go for orange. For God. God's important, so we need to put him in our lives. How about pink? Pink stands for joy. Things make us happy and flourish and thrive. Blue. That could be the things that God's called us to do, but can you see the problem? We filled our lives with the small things, so the important things don't fit in. We need to start again. We need to start again. If we put the important things in our life first into the diary, then we can start to put in the other things in our life. Sometimes our life needs a bit of a shake. But you see what happens. Put the important things in first. And finally, never forget this. There's always time for a cup of tea with someone. Put the important things in first in your life. And just like on a games board, every square of the board in our life, in the calendar, has got boundaries. 2 horizontal, 2 vertical. But on the board of life, it's like each square has got an invisible box, which is a door that leads us to the next square. And we go through that square every day. There is no back door. You can't go back. And ultimately, one of the squares is the terminal, the end. So it's important when we think about how we fill those squares in the game of our life, we need to put in the important things first. What are the important things in your life? Thirdly, how do we play the game? Well, we need to get involved. You need to roll the dice. In any game, to make it worthwhile, you actually have to get involved. You don't get much out of life or out of a game if you don't play with it. If you don't play the game, you've got no chance of winning. A while ago, I read this story about a man called Larry Walters. There's a picture of him. In 1982, Larry Walters shot to fame. He'd always wanted to fly, but unfortunately, because he had bad eyesight, he wasn't allowed to. So what Larry did was he tied 45 helium balloons to a garden chair. And then he strapped himself in with a pellet gun. And the idea was he was going to go up on the chair about 30 feet above his backyard and shoot the balloons when he got to the right level. Unfortunately, he miscalculated. And he didn't just go up 30 feet, he went up 16,000 feet. And he was too scared to shoot any of the balloons. And he just drifted for the next 14 hours. And needless to say, he crossed some flight paths of planes. You can imagine the pilots radio on the tower. You'll never believe what I've just seen. Needless to say, eventually he plucked up the courage to shoot a few of the balloons with his pellet gun, and he gradually descended, only to be arrested by the Los Angeles police when he landed. And he was led away by a reporter. As he was led away, a reporter shouted out to him, "Why did you do it?" And Larry replied, "Well, you can't just sit there, can you?" Which is ironic because he had just sat there, but he wasn't the brightest crayon in the pack, was he? But he does have a good point. You can't not get involved in the game of life. To not get involved is impossible. But how we engage with the game is up to us. And I say, in order to be in the game, to have any chance of winning, you've got to roll the dice. You've got to get involved. And one good way of getting involved is to find your mission. Find your calling, find your role in life. You need to find your mission field, a place where you can make a difference. I read an account a number of years ago, and it has always stuck in my mind. You can actually see this on YouTube as well if you want to. But I want to read it to you now because it says a lot about finding your mission field, far better than I can ever say. A woman called Barbara Glanz was hired by a large supermarket chain to develop customer service. In America, this was. And during her talk, she said, "Every one of you can make a difference and create memories for your customers and motivate them to come back. Put your personal signature on the job. Think about something you can do for your customers to make them feel special, a memory that will make them come back." Well, a month later, she received a phone call from 19-year-old Johnny. Johnny used to pack groceries in bags at the checkout at the supermarket where he worked. And he told her that he had Down syndrome, and he went on to say, "I really liked what you talked about." He said, "At first I couldn't think of anything special for our customers. After all, I just packed the bags for people. But then I had an idea." Johnny said, "Every night after work, I'd come home and I'd find a thought for the day. If I didn't like anything I could find, I'd think something up. And when Johnny had thought about his thought for the day, his dad helped him to set it up on a computer and print out copies of it. And Johnny would then cut up each quote and sign his name on the back, and then he'd bring them to work the next day. And when he was packing someone's groceries, he said, I put in the thought for the day in the back bag and said, thanks for shopping with us." Well, needless to say, Barbara was really encouraged by this story. A month later, the store manager rang. He said, "You won't believe what's happened. While I was making my rounds today in the store, I found Johnny's checkout line was 3 times longer than anyone else's. It went all the way down the frozen food aisle. So I quickly announced, we need more cashiers, get more lanes open. And I tried to get people to change lanes, but nobody would move. They said, no, it's okay. We want to be in Johnny's lane. We want his thought for the day." And store manager continued, "It was a joy to watch Johnny with the customers. I got a lump in my throat when one woman said, I used to shop at your store once a week, but now I come in every day, every time I go by, because I want to get Johnny's thought for the day." And a few months passed, and a few months later, the manager called again. He said, "Barbara, Johnny has transformed our store. Now when the floral department has a broken flower or an unused flower arrangement, they find an elderly woman or a little girl and they pin it on them. Everyone's having a lot of fun creating memories. Our customers are talking about us. They're coming back and bringing their friends. A wonderful spirit of service has spread throughout the entire store. And all because Johnny chose to make a difference." He chose to make a difference. So what can we say about our mission field? Well, here are some fundamental truths you need to know. Your mission starts with where you are, not where you think you should be. Your mission is not about you. Your mission will use your strengths. Your mission will use your weaknesses. Your mission means that God believes in you. I wonder, what is your mission field? When Jesus called his disciples, he didn't just call them to follow him around until he died. He called them by telling them this: what I know, I will teach you, and what I do, you can do. When the disciples let Jesus down at the end and he died, he didn't give up on them, because he came back to life and he restored them and he recommissioned them and he showed them that he had confidence in them. And that is also true for you. Even if you have let Jesus down, he hasn't given up on you. You still have a mission for him. You have still got a mission to do for him. So as I come in to land this talk, in summary for today, this is what I've been talking about playing the game of life. Firstly, you need to play by the rules. Secondly, fill every square, the calendar of your life, with what matters most. Remember the illustration. Thirdly, get involved. Roll the dice. You can't sit there doing nothing. And fourthly, find your mission. Jesus sent his followers out to do what he did. And that's what he's calling you to do. He's inviting you to go on a mission and to play a real game. The game of life. Now, you may not feel sure you believe in Jesus. You may not have much confidence. Here's the good news. God believes in you. God believes in you. Each one of you. I'm going to stop there. And like the last few weeks, we're going to have about 5 minutes to chat with a person or the people next to you, perhaps a little bit shorter today rather. If you want to sit in silence and think how do the Bible readings relate to what I've said, that's fine. But I've got a few questions for you to ponder if you want to think about these and have a chat with the person next to you. Firstly, what rules do you break if you can get away with it? You might want to think about that. That's about integrity. What are the important things in your life that you need to prioritise? What are the important things you need to put in first? And thirdly, in what way or where do you think God might be calling you to make a difference and to get involved? Where and what is your mission? What is your mission field? So I haven't primed Tom about this. So Tom, I don't know if you can get a CD and put it in perhaps just a quietish type one. But if you'd like to perhaps have a chat for about 3 to 5 minutes and then we'll carry on towards the end of the service. Jim will come up.